Why is there no noise on that? Hello, can anyone hear anything? Oh dear, oh dear. I think I'm speaking. Oh, it's doing that thing, isn't it? Where there's no noise. Oh, curses. I might have to restart OBS. Hello, everyone.
Oh, no.
That's not the best start to a stream. And look at that. And I've still got the F1 movie thing there. And then there's someone banging around in the background. Oh, my goodness gracious. What that is, Matt, that is the worst start to a stream since probably a couple of weeks ago.
Stream?
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago on a Sunday. We always say, but that's why you have the stream. But what, there's no sounds at all. Here's Spanners, no music. Yeah, I know. The sounds from me, that's fine. But yeah, when I do it's going to make me want to re-download. There you go. That's not going to come across well, is it? Oh, I don't know what to do, Matt. I don't know. I'm not going to restart, is it? That's the sort of thing I should have tested it beforehand, and I didn't. But anyway, you can look at the pretty graphics anyway, as I try and... It's definitely a universal setting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up the main settings, and I'm just going to start pressing buttons. Just like Lewis Hamilton,
just
2015.
Like Lewis in the race.
I'm just going to start pressing any button.
Like, no, don't do that.
I think it's...
Were you there for that?
Oh, hang on. Mike's here. Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
Hello. Hey. Sorry, what was I there for? What?
The infamous Lewis. I'm just going to press all the buttons till I get the right combination.
2016 Baku. Yes, I was there. Yeah.
What was that like in the garage?
Well, that was. Well, I mean, we were just all there going, can't tell him anything. So yeah, that was. It was. I mean, it was frustrating at the same time, but I don't think it didn't cost huge amounts in the end. It was just an annoyance.
Yeah.
But I believe, if I remember rightly, it's annoyingly starting to get to that time where it's 10 years ago now, all these stories, which is quite scary.
I was more interested in like the internal reaction when he said, I'm just going to press everything.
I'm just trying to think what will happen if I stop this stream. I'm just going to stop the stream. I'm going to restart it. All right, sorry guys, but it's going to fire up in like that.
Yeah.
So it's good. Hang on. Oh, there we go. So there you go. That's all it takes to work. What volume was your Zoom at, Mike, when you looked at it?
My microphone?
Yeah.
It was like 50%, so I knocked it up to like 70.
Okay, you can make it 80 if you can, and I think we'll just get a little bit more sound out of you. But we should be back up and running, so I think everyone can hear us and we're ready to go. But now you can hear all the graphics, guys. Okay. There you go. It works. It's OBS. It just locks up sometimes. It's a free service. So now I'm ready to talk about the things. I've got some really interesting questions from Mike here. It's the Austrian Grand Prix, which is one of my favourites. I'm slightly sleepy. I got to 2 o'clock without a coffee. And I was like, why am I feeling tired? Oh, that's right. Because I've voluntarily given myself a dependence to caffeine. Okay, so you guys can hear us all again. We're all up and running. That's good. So this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to go, spin your car. You are listening to Missed Apex Podcast. We live F1. Welcome to Missed Apex Podcast. I'm your host, Richard Reddy, but my friends call me Spanners. So, let's be friends. This is our Austrian Grand Prix race preview, and I'm very delighted that we'll be joined by Matt Trumpets, but much more importantly, Mike Caulfield. And the Austrian Grand Prix is one that I always look forward to. It's a track that usually provides for opportunities to pass. It's built for combat, one might say, and it's a track where you really have to get them in the turns. Turns 1, 3, and 4 traditionally have been great overtaking spots with battles, sometimes 5 cars wide, bundling into a corner, and you don't know who's going to come out ahead. So it is a racetrack, I think, where you can have reasonable expectations. So you can say, I think there's probably going to be some racing here in Austria. Let's get to our fine guests. So, of course, not really a guest. You got your feet under the table, Matt. You don't even have to take your shoes off when you come in. Matt Trumpets.
Oh, it's good. It's good to be here for this show because Austria is such both nothing of a track and a nightmare of a track at the same time.
Yeah, because you look at it and you go, it probably should be rubbish. And you go, it's not many turns. Remember when it sort of first popped back up into the calendar and you went, it's got how many turns? And you go, it's got 7 effective turns.
It's amazing. And I'm excited to talk even more about turns on today's show.
Yeah, and we've also got expert strategist Mike Caulfield. I was going to say former strategist Mike Caulfield, because you used to be at Mercedes, used to be at HAAS, but in your heart, you're always once a strategist, always a strategist.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah, definitely. It's not something you just give up. You keep tapping into it and you keep letting people know what you think in a more unofficial way, which is often much less pressure and much more opinionated as well, where you don't have to play the political games.
No, and I suppose you can't really watch a race though without going, well, I wouldn't have done that. I'd have put him on the softs.
Yeah, no, you definitely think that, and I always give a little bit of credit. I kind of sit on the fence. You don't know the conversations which happen behind the scenes, but yeah, you do look at a race afterwards and go, "Ooh, that was a tough one."
Well, I did a race review. Sorry, not a race review, a film review of the F1 movie, which you can go and catch. I recorded that yesterday. For everyone else, I was recommending if you're into F1 and love movies, you should go and see the F1 movie. And then you appeared on my screen, and I went, maybe Mike shouldn't watch the F1 movie.
No, I'm going to watch it. I'm going in with it with an open mind. I haven't seen it yet, obviously. But yeah, it's an action movie. I'm going to take it as an action movie and look forward to the cinematic experience and try not to be too critical of the strategy calls. And,
oh my God!
and the meetings.
We should have a live eye roll cam, like just on your face, just waiting for every eye roll. Sorry, Matt, you were trying to come in.
No, you were just talking about being circumspect, criticizing strategy calls. And I was sorely tempted. There's 2 from Canada that I really wondered about, is whether or not if Albon had pitted the same lap as Hulkenberg, he could have pulled off a 1-stop. And the same for Leclerc. I was really surprised, although I put that down mostly to the lack of Friday data at Ferrari.
I mean, the Leclerc ones did surprise me. Again, I feel like every time I come on here, I'm bashing the Ferrari strategist. So maybe I'm not the only one in that sense. But I mean, I was going into this race already kind of thinking there's a potential of a 1-stop. I think we talked about it on the preview, but it's Canada's definitely one of those ones where it's a 1-stop race. It's always been that one where you can go one less stop and have a potential of a good result. And then for Leclerc, I mean, I've kind of already put it to the back of mind, but he obviously made his stop and put the same tyres on again, which committed him to that 2-stop and that. So it was a strange decision at that point. Obviously, Lewis as well looked a strange decision in the beginning, but then it's come out afterwards. He's obviously had that damage to the car, so that would kind of makes a bit more sense of why his performance dropped off. And yeah, the Albon one, it was. He almost pitted in that kind of no man's land kind of thing. They didn't commit to going for that 1-stop, and they didn't commit to kind of going on the early side. But you look at a lot of the cars who started on that alternate tyre and pushed it long. So I think Ocon in the HAAS was the primary example, well, one of the primary examples of. But they just extended that stint. They saw how that tyre went on that first one, and then if they got to a certain one, they went, right, we know we can make a 1-stop work here, and that's what they did, and they pulled off and got points for it. It was a good result. So I'm surprised other teams didn't do that as such and kind of monitor how that tyre was going. Look, like you said, but there was a lack of Friday data. So you try and use that first stint to get that data, and you have that kind of, if we can reach this point, great. If not, okay, we do this. And it feels like some teams just didn't kind of read that situation well enough.
All right. Thanks for that information, Mike. Just excuse me a second. I just want a little private word with Matt over here. Matt, what are you doing? You've turned it into a Canadian Grand Prix review. This is the Austrian Grand Prix preview. Have you got a master plan to loop that back in? Sorry, Mike. We're just having a little word.
So given that, what do you think the biggest mistake teams are likely to make in Austria?
I mean, Austria as well. It's going into it this weekend. Weather's always going to affect it. So I haven't seen what the forecast is for this weekend yet, but there is potential maybe Friday might be washed out. It might not be, but you can always go into that lack of data. It's again, it's been one of these ones which is a one-stop track notoriously, but it can go down to a two-stop depending on tyres. There are a number of high-speed corners. There's a number of kind of opportunities to push the car on this one. And if the tyres are on that kind of fragile side, we've had temperatures in Austria where it can be up at 45, 50 degrees track temp, which really like punishes those softer tyres. So I think that's what the teams are going to be looking at there. And it's that same situation because it's such a short track as well. So your pit stop loss is still the same. Your pit stop loss is still in that kind of 20 to 25 seconds region, but the lap time's just over a minute. So if you make your pit stops wrong or you get one out, you're suddenly in a lot of traffic. You're suddenly in like potentially backmarker traffic. You're kind of getting blue flags when you don't want to, especially if that kind of midfield team. So it's a very compact track and which can make that kind of situation difficult, which means you have to kind of navigate it and pull it out of the situation. There's a good chance of safety cars there because as we mentioned, there's lots of racing can potentially happen, and there's lots of potential for kind of collisions and debris and that aspect. So there's all those aspects you need to be kind of aware of in Austria as well.
I just on the weather, because I've just got the weather from F1 Formula1.com. Oh, do they do it? They do an official forecast for the race. That's really handy. Okay, so basically Scorchio is the weather forecast. So yeah, it's going to be warm with a very slight chance of rain in the late afternoon. So basically, we're watching the weather radar. Any news on the weather radar if the race starts to settle down at all? And what was the other question for that? What safety car percentage? Does there tend to be a safety car at the Austrian Grand Prix?
There's quite a high percentage of a safety car at Austria just because of the amount of racing which actually happens. It's not kind of the procession, so you get a bit of contact, especially that kind of turn 3 corners, turn 4 corners where there's a couple of lines you can take into it. There's always a few bit of argy-bargy, if you like to call it, through there.
AI Overview says 75% chance. Oh, according to F1 Manager 2024. These F1 overviews in the Google are driving me just bonkers. Okay, Matt, sorry, go on.
Well, just carrying on with that, because you mentioned traffic. Sometimes I feel like the strategic decisions at the front versus the back are different, because at the front, if you're trying to say do an undercut, which by the way, is the undercut powerful here? You got to watch out for traffic and what your pit window is. But if you're like 10th, a lot of times, if you go for the early stop, you're coming out behind the whole field and you have free air, so you can really take advantage of it. Do you think we might see some kind of divergence that way?
I guess it depends on how the tyres are holding up. So if it's those ones where the tyres are a bit fragile and you maybe want to get off and do a stop early on and do that one, you do have that opportunity to kind of pit to free air and get it. And I think because the track's at altitude as well, the free air does make quite a big difference because obviously your brakes, you suffer with brakes overheating, you suffer with the actual just overheating of the car in overall Austria. The PUs aren't as powerful here because the ice situation aren't as powerful because of the altitude. So all that kind of comes into account as well. So free air often is that kind of aspect. I mean, I had a couple of races as well where you have like 3 DRS zones, one after each other, down the start finish straight, up to turn 3, down to turn 4. And you'll have a car stuck behind another car. I can't get past him, even with the DRS. And if it's teammates, you often see them switch position, and then you'll just see the teammate then hanging onto its tail. So it's not actually going faster, it's just the DRS effect through there, which is doing it. In terms of kind of the undercut has the potential to be that little bit powerful, but again, it's as soon as if you drop into a bit of traffic, then that undercut will probably wipe out. It is one of the better tracks for tyres if you manage correctly, because it has these corners where you can manage the tyres well without losing much time. So you can often see that kind of one-stop happening. But if you don't manage the tyres well, or if you've got a car which is hard on the tyres, then you can punish them. So I've been in the situation both where we've done a great management race and also a race where we've gone in reverse gear for the first 15 laps of the race.
Was one of those with Mercedes and one of those with HAAS?
They were actually both with HAAS.
Oh, are they?
2018 and 2019 are two definitely polar opposite results there. It's it was quite an interesting one in there of how getting the tyres working and performing makes that big difference.
Okay, so I guess we're continuing our series of how to lose the Austrian Grand Prix. Have you been personally responsible for losing an Austrian Grand Prix, Mike Caulfield?
So
Uh-oh.
So, so personally responsible, I'm going to say no. I've had a wider range of results there. So I think Austria's always been one of my favorite circuits, both like performance wise, like strategically, and just as going to a venue as a natural, yeah, race to go to. I just love the circuit. I love the
Okay, are
place.
you saying it's not too far to get to hospitality? Because that was your big complaint at Monaco, wasn't it? Poor Mike. It took you slightly too long to get across to hospitality.
I mean, if we're going to go into that, like, it's the best paddock toilets in the air. I've
Is
mentioned
it?
that to you before. Yeah,
That's
it's
good.
fantastic. No,
Good to
there's
know.
very little queuing, plenty of facilities.
Right.
It's,
Okay.
it's fantastic. Anyway, no, I go back to the strategy aspect of it. So yeah, so I think 2016 is probably the best example of it with them when I was with Mercedes. Had a car which was very dominant, and then it's basically the Hamilton Rosberg battle.
Yeah.
And in that race, we were going into the race, and Lewis was on pole. Nico was starting P7 because of the gearbox penalty. And we obviously then said, right, we're going to want to try and use Nico to kind of get back up the field. He had a powerful car, but we'll go for a slightly offset strategy. It was a one-stop race going into it, and it was I think ultra soft one-stop race was like kind of the baseline. But we thought with Nico would stop early, try and get him into that bit of free air, get the undercut on cars and come back through. So we stopped him, I think about lap 10, lap 13. I can't remember exactly at that early stage. He was obviously starting down in P7. He was quite far behind Lewis. So there was no threat of undercuts straight away. But he was on, but we had, because we were stopping that early, it was like, it's a 2-stop race. So then we stopped him early. He came back through the field. We went to stop Lewis to cover off Nico. But then he had a slow pit stop. We had a problem with the rear left or rear right. I can't remember which one around. And then forced Lewis to then come out behind Nico.
Yes, and then there was a famous coming together then on the final lap. I think it was the final lap, wasn't it?
It was the final lap. But I mean, before all that though, we kind of Lewis came out behind Nico. But in that stage, we was like, no, it's fine because he's on a 2-stop anyway. You're on a 1-stop, so he's going to make another pit stop behind. Yes, okay, he'll have fresher tyres coming towards the end potentially, but we can manage that situation. But then Nico then decided to say, no, I'm going to do a 1-stop. So then that kind of came into a play where he basically refused to stop again. And it kind of then started to get a bit anxious and a bit feisty in that respect. So Lewis couldn't get past him because there wasn't a big enough tyre delta at that point in the race to try and get past, but they kept on trying. So then in the end we went, well, Lewis, we basically got a free pit stop. I think we fell behind one car, which would be easy to overtake with a tyre delta. So what we normally do is say, right, Lewis, we'll give you a second pit stop, give you a chance to catch back up and overtake at the end of the race. So we stopped him being the second car first, which again, not normally what you'd do, but because of what Nico had done and gone against the plans,
right? Yeah,
we then gave Lewis the preference. He didn't quite get the undercut because then Nico then decided to stop the next lap and he called for the pit stop next lap. However, again, because of Nico disobeyed kind of the orders of what we'd done, we'd then put him on the weaker tyre for that last stint, which caused the offset between Nico and Lewis. So Lewis was still behind Nico. Nico was on the weaker tyre, and then obviously they had that kind of coming together on the last lap. And so in the end, it should have been a 1-2 with Lewis first, Nico second. Nico ended up in fifth because he crashed into Lewis.
Whose call? Can you say whose call it was to put Rosberg onto a weaker tyre?
That was I think a global decision, but
that means it was Mike.
Well, no, it was a fairness. Like he'd gone against our what we'd said, our rules. I think we had the rules of engagement at that point. So we said, right, okay, if you're going to stop again, we're putting you on this tyre. We don't want you to stop again now. You'd made the call for a 1-stop. You're not converted to a 2-stop. But obviously in that same race, you had Vettel who'd had a tyre blowout. So we were a little bit nervous. And again, and very much of the team is we wanted the best team result. So we said, okay, if you're going to stop again, we're putting you on this tyre.
Just to clarify, is this kind of Mercedes trying to almost maintain what was the natural order of the race, which was Lewis up front and Rosberg behind?
Yeah, so the way Mercedes works is we'd always give an opportunity to the second car, but it'd be done in a planned fashion. So like you could do the offset strategy and have that chance to take it. But then when Nico didn't do and we gave the opportunity to Nico by stopping him first, that he'd have that second stop, he'd have fresh tyres at the end, to have that ability to come and potentially attack Lewis and gain the position on merit. But then he overruled him. Well, they overruled what the team orders were, and decided to go on a one-stop itself. So then it was up to the team to then try and put it back into a situation that favoured Lewis.
Oh, so by refusing the team order, Rosberg had artificially given himself an advantage from the team, I guess, is the...
Yes, yeah, basically, yeah.
Matt?
Well, this is kind of what I wanted to ask about also because I'm thinking about Spa with Russell and Lewis that happened more recently. But was that within Rosberg's purview to say, I'd prefer the one stop? Or was that really kind of him realizing that, well, there wasn't much you could do about it since he was out on track and you couldn't make him come into the pits?
100% the latter, I believe. It wasn't, I mean, because we'd stopped him on lap 10 of the race. So, I mean, there was still 61 laps of the race to go on that tyre. And like all the information we had is that tyre wasn't going to last. And I think he just basically decided.
Oh no, what a time to lose Mike temporarily.
Okay. The tyres felt okay. And yeah, he was going to, this was to try and gain in positions up to second. It wasn't stopping him to try and gain against Lewis. So he kind of went against it in that sense. So yeah, it was very much Nico who made that call.
All right. And just a quick follow up then. I see that you said you put him on the weaker tires to try and balance the situation for Lewis because, well, I know Spanner says natural order of the race. Your second car gets a chance to catch up, but in the end, it's got to be done on track and not through pit stops in Mercedes' view.
Yeah, I mean, we tried it with pit stops first. So obviously we stopped Lewis first, it being the second car, which normally you wouldn't do. Normally you stop the first car to prevent the undercut.
Yeah.
Right. The undercut wasn't hugely strong at that point in terms of it still gave Nico that opportunity one lap later to come out. But I think the weaker tyre wasn't so much of the weaker tyre was more of a punishment, if I remember correctly, for disobeying the team rules from the start.
Okay, so my question is that's great, but were you just tempted to have a word with, like, say, the left rear mechanic, or just say, "Oh, damage to your front wing, we got to replace that too," to just solve the problem once and for all?
Sticky wheel gun.
I think that's above my pay grade in that sense, and I think it's obviously difficult because obviously the rear left guy, I can't remember who it was at the time, he could have well have been on Nico's crew anyway. It could have been on Lewis's crew, so he could have made that decision himself. Who knows?
Oh God, you don't even think about that. When the crew's that divided, the actual pit stop crew is split between the garages. Right, okay. I just want a quick note here, quick aside. So Jenson Button did this kind of fairly kind of patronising and mocking thing on Sky, where he was like, "Guys, no team is ever going to make their driver go suboptimal or go slower." Can I just say, this is absolute evidence that a team deliberately made their driver go and had a not optimal tyre, not optimal speed. So it definitely does happen. Teams can definitely manipulate things between their drivers. They can pick their number one driver and have very small and subtle ways of holding one driver back or pushing one driver forward. It just happens all the time. And I'm just so sick of when I point these things out, I get accused of being a mad tin foil hat conspiracy theorist, Matt. But all the conspiracies are true now. That means everything's true.
This is just a Perez defense incoming.
Yeah, no, exactly.
This is exactly what I've got.
Justice for Checo. Do you know what I mean? Cracking a gearbox and all that kind of stuff. No, really, really fascinating. But I will argue then that your strategy team lost the 1-2 by doing that, because maybe with a better tyre, Hamilton doesn't get the run on him on that final lap. And therefore there's no contact, there's no crash.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, 100%. Like the aim of the team was always to be a 1-2. That's kind of thing. I mean, and we could have. There's numerous things we could have done in that race and let it be a 1-2 with Nico leading Lewis home. I mean, we could have literally just held ground and not stopped him again. Yeah. Or we could have just held Lewis, pitted Nico, put him on the. There's lots of things we could have done to ensure that 1-2. But I think a lot of it was done there, and there was a lot of tensions at that point in the season, because obviously Barcelona had already happened not that long. I mean, it would have been, a month and a bit before, and so there's lots of things already going on. So, yeah, I think it was trying to equalise out, like, the tensions in it to make it as fair as it should have been. But, yeah, I mean...
Would Rosberg's tyres not have gone off by the end of that stint if they'd both stayed out on a one stop. So you'd probably got the similar situation again with Hamilton having a delta eventually.
I mean, there's a chance, but again, and I think it was the option. The option at that point is that you can't force him in. He was saying he was doing a one stop, and then as soon as we stopped Lewis, he suddenly wanted to go to a two stop again. It's and like you can't then just force him to. Well, you can force him to stay out, but then you're obviously he trundles into the pit lane and there's no mechanics there. You're losing the 1-2, which we did anyway. But so yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, I was at the track that weekend as well, and it was. Yeah, it was a really difficult one to manage, and yeah, I mean, the whole team got an absolute headmaster's dressing down in the truck afterwards.
That was going to be my next question, because I do wonder if the team has an internal game of whose fault is it? And do they end up, having a little inquiry? Because if you're having a go at the whole team and you look at, say, Barcelona and you go, well, all right, well, Rosberg probably pushed him off, but then Hamilton definitely kept his foot in to make sure they both went off. If you look at something like Austria and you go, to me, that's far clearer case of Rosberg just driving into the side of Hamilton as they try and make their way around the corner. Does that iron not get more targeted at one driver more than the other? Or was the hairdryer treatment coming for the strategy team for kind of what seems like quite a high level of manipulation of that race?
No, I mean, so when you say the strategy team, this was fully bought in by Toto, chief engineers, everything. This wasn't just a call from the strategy team to try and get it back. This was like upper management levels of discussion to kind of say, this is what we're going to do. So everyone was on board with that. I think, and that's the case in most teams. If these kind of decisions have to be had, they will eventually get the payoff. Like I didn't have the privy. I was still a junior at that point, so I didn't have the privy of being on these kind of management channels to see what the kind of ins and outs were going on in their one. But yeah, you can fully expect that there's a conversation going on of how can we rectify this situation, and that's how it comes. But then, yeah, when it came in, I don't know what the behind closed doors conversations were, but I mean, yeah, certain person came into the office, both drivers were there, both drivers were shouted at, but then both drivers were shouted at, making the rest of us look like other people, characters, as I say, and yeah, and there was a lot of words and a lot of kind of sheepish, schoolboyish looks around the office.
And that, ladies
and a few people trying not to snigger.
Yeah, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is how to lose the Austrian Grand Prix. Mike, we've got you here for another 10 minutes or so, so we want to fire some specific questions at you. I'll start with one from Stuart, which was pretty cool. It says, if the rumours and the funny film from Valtteri Bottas is true about him joining Cadillac, what type of insights can you bring to a new team in terms of strategy and development? So there's a lot made of having an experienced driver. If you're joining Cadillac and that's your next job, do you look at Bottas and go, oh man, yeah, he's got all that, Mercedes kind of, background and information? Or is there only a limit? Is there a limit to how useful that is?
No, I mean, I think for a new team coming in, it's definitely an advantage having an experienced driver as such. So obviously the people they're going to have working them, I'm assuming are going to be experienced people as well. So they're all kind of have their knowledge of how they're going to do things. But getting that someone who's been in a drive recently, who's worked with World Championship teams, who's worked with lower down teams as well as obviously he's spelled with Sauber. Yeah. I forgot what they were called. And you get that experience from him of kind of how certain teams do aspects of things, how Mercedes do it, how Sauber do it, how he can look at around kind of a little bit how. I'm not comparing myself to him whatsoever, but like I went from Mercedes to HAAS, and you'll go for a team which has 1,200 people to a team which has less than 200 people. And you kind of try and balance up to say, well, what can we do better with the resource you've got? And what can we start to implement what we aren't doing, which doesn't require groups and groups of people like Mercedes do, but it's just like little things we can do around the circuit and around the kind of office and in the garage, which improves the quality of life for your mechanics, for your engineers, for your drivers. And he'll be able to bring that kind of knowledge of what works, what doesn't work from like a world championship team and help guide in certain directions.
So given that there's a couple of experienced drivers on the market and probably one or two more that you might be able to pick off, Would Bottas, from your knowledge of him, be the best choice for Cadillac here, or is there somebody else that you think might do a better job in that role?
I think he'll be very good in that role. I guess it also depends on who they're looking to line up alongside him. So I think there's are they going for an experienced driver and a rookie? Are they going for two experienced?
No, I know what they're doing. They're going for an experienced driver who's affordable and a pay driver. That's what they're going to do, isn't it? There's going to be a Schumacher or a Zhou Guanyu.
Yeah, and I think potentially what you want from that experienced driver, if that's what they're going for, then is you just need someone who's consistent, who's reliable. He might not be the fastest driver out there, but he's someone who has that kind of who's well known for being a good natured person, a good kind of environment to the team, good character, can help bring up other ones, isn't going to cause issues amongst with his teammates. So if potentially he has a young pay driver who actually has a bit of performance behind him, he's not going to upset the car with that and take his bat home and not help him out. I think he'll be very good in terms of like kind of creating that experience needed to help the team develop in that first year, because the first year, no matter how well you are prepared, is going to be a shock to the system.
Matt, it really is turning into pro-am, isn't it? F1.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen rumors that Drugovich might be in line for that second seat, but I'm going to follow up with a tiny little question, which is, you mentioned Bottas Sauber. He is also driven Ferrari power units, and isn't that where GM is starting out? So maybe that gives him a little bit of an inside edge.
Yeah, no, and yeah, 100%. If he's worked with the Ferrari PU, then that does help the team out there, because each one does have a kind of unique way to drive it, has a unique way to set up, has a unique way of how the engineers deal with it. So having someone who's experienced that kind of power unit, even though obviously next year the power unit's going to be totally different anyway, so this is potentially actually a moot point, but maybe the relationship of how the Ferrari engineers work is will be useful to Cadillac.
No, well, let's see. We've got one more question. We've covered the toilets. That was the most important thing. That's what everyone wanted to know, Mike. Let's see. This is a good one from Aloysius. Sorry. Beg your pardon. I didn't get anywhere close to pronouncing that correctly. I'm not sure if it's strategy specific, but why are the track limits such an issue in Austria? Is it just the overall speed, or is it something else? I just want to chime in quickly before Mike answers this, which is people need to stop getting upset that track limits are a thing that needs to be enforced. No, you don't need to put landmines around the outside. You just need to identify where are the areas where going off track is a specific advantage, or where you can buy yourself more room in a racing incident. Just all the places where you want to monitor track limits. There's only going to be a handful of them. Put a decently placed camera on there that doesn't give you a lot of parallax, where you can make a good enough judgment for a steward who is a referee to make a call. So they go, oh, we think that there's a track limits thing there. Have a look at it. You might not be able to see the exact truth. You might not have a 3D model. You might not have alarms going off, which would be easy, by the way. But you've just got a steward who makes a call in or out. It happens in tennis. The umpire makes a call in or out. Cricket, catch. Did he snick it on the way through to the wicketkeeper? Did the ball go over the line? Did he handle it? It's completely common in sport just to have a referee make a call, and it's perfectly fine for there to be a boundary. People getting so upset, they're like, oh, well, why are they bothering with all these track limits? It's like in football, if they say, why are they always fussing about whether it's actually gone over the line or not? Just say it's a goal and get on with it. Anyway, Mike, why is it such an issue at Austria?
I think mainly it's because, there's two aspects. It was originally built so modified to be a motorcycle circuit, so they obviously had the huge tarmac runoffs for the MotoGP guys, and then I think it also then became an issue is to prevent that. They used to have the kind of quite severe curbing there, which then we saw numerous suspension failures on the F1 cars. So the curbs then had to be taken away, which then meant that the F1 cars could just run over them, and it's the quickest line. So, I mean, and that's what you're going to do as a driver. It's the nature and the flow of the circuit just means that they'll try and just gain that extra little bit. And
Mike, was this where they had the really big curbs, like the big sawtooth curbs.
Yeah, exactly. So
Right.
it kind of can create the resonance, which basically meant suspension was just failing because the F1 car suspensions aren't designed for that kind of level of frequency going through it. So they went away, which meant they got flatter curbs in there, which then meant the drivers went, oh, I can start to push this. And yeah, they're going fast. It's a high-speed circuit in that sense. It's quite flowing. It's like up and down. So it's not easy to kind of pinpoint it. There's no easy visual markers to kind of see it. And they're always going to just try and drive it the fastest way they can. And the fastest way of these corners is to try and curve the corner out as much as possible. So there's a lot of corner followed by corner. So you've got 9, 10, which if you just have that as one corner as such, which means going out over the line.
The final two.
Yeah, the final two. Yeah, you'll go faster. The same with the kind of 6, 7 is kind of a corner then followed by a corner. It's not as much as a track limits one, but that's mainly because of the gravel there. But again, you'd go faster in there if that was slightly more rounded. So it's more just the nature of that circuit where you've got fast corner followed by fast corner in quite close proximity. And the fastest way to drive them is to create that little bit. It's the same with like the last corners at Austin, like 19, 20, 21 or whatever, the same one there. I mean, if you watch the NASCAR or IndyCar guys go around there, I mean, track limits is
it's crazy.
It's 20, 25 meters off the circuit. They're going through those lines. But that's the quickest way to do it because they have to go quicker through the corner there.
Quick fire questions, quick fire answers. I know Mike's got to go away, so shoot. I've got a couple of two.
All right. So my most wonky question is, how do you figure out which turns to set the car up for at a track like Austria? Is it because you have the most medium speed corners, or is it because you gain the most time in a high or a low speed corner? Like, how do you make that calculation? And then along those lines, once you make that choice, how wide is that aero window where the car is at its absolute best? Is it like 140 to 180, or is it like 140 to 150?
So with Austria, I'll just go quick as possible. So basically, because you've got the low speed corners onto long straights, you want to kind of get that performance through the low speed corners as good as possible. So you then don't lose the performance going down the straight. So therefore you're going to have to compromise. You might be a little bit loose in some of the high speed, but because you're in the high speed corners for less amount of time, you can kind of compensate that. And as long as you're not losing bags of time there, because I think actually going back to 2019 in HAAS, we were the quickest car through turn 9 and 10, but yet we were the slowest race car. So it shows that the high-speed corners, actually, as long as you just get through them, you don't need to be super fast through them. It's the rest of the circuit, which is the main ones.
Okay, pit stop delta, do we know it? Long pit stop delta, short pit stop delta?
I mean, it's fairly high speed, so I think it's roughly in the region of about 20 seconds.
Okay, so that's relatively on the low side.
I mean, that's about average. I think Montreal's probably a little bit quicker, probably in about 18, but normally you're looking around that 20 to 23 seconds is kind of average.
20 and apparently 9 seconds for SCVSC, according to the official Pirelli guide.
Okay, how many stops, Mike, to win this race?
I believe a one-stop race.
Well, it's going to be a one-stopper, even with the step softer tyres.
I mean, if you do say Scorchio, then there's a chance it's going to push out for a 2-stop. But like I said, though, that kind of traffic and short lap time and pushing into it, they'll still probably be able to make the C4 or whatever the hardest compound is. They work quite a long distance.
Are they going 4.56? Are they, Matt?
No, it's 3.45. Same as last year.
Yeah, okay.
But same as last year.
Different construction and. I don't know. I think Pirelli's still saying 2-stop, but I'm looking for the 1-stop now because, all my favorite drivers are tire meisters.
I think it's going to be one of these ones where it will be potential 2-stop going into it. If it's hot, some teams will go to it, but if you can make a 1-stop work, then there might be good opportunities there.
Well, I wouldn't want to do a 1-stop and then get punished by Mike and his strategy friends by having, putting on one of those, the spare tires in the boot when you have a puncture and you put one of the
space saver ones,
space saver that you can only do 50 on. You go, oh, why have I got a space saver on my rear left? That's what you get, Nico. Does the undercut work here? Powerful undercut?
It's mid. It's not a huge. If they're having tire problems, then yes, it will do. But I think it's one of those ones where you can potentially do one lap later and it'll be tight on exit. But it's there's always a chance.
Okay, specific driving style needed here. Hamilton says he doesn't like it. He's always complained about how you have to carry a higher minimum speed through here. It's going to be Scorchio. What's the Austrian for Scorchio? So basically, who's winning, Mike, based on those factors?
Oscar Piastri.
Yeah, fairly good. Norris to underwhelm in Q3 and then fight gallantly back for a P2 with contact on the way and Verstappen P3. Mike, I know you've got to get away. Thank you so much for your time. Are you on social media at the moment? On
Blue Sky,
yeah.
But not really active on it. Just more reading.
I think you are still on our Patreon
yes, I am,
Discord. Yeah. So feel free to bother Mike there. You can tag him. He doesn't have to answer, but you can follow him there by supporting us at patreon.com/Missed Apex. Mike, feel free to hang up. Thank you very much for your time, and we'll catch you in a couple of weeks.
Cool. Cheers, guys. Thanks for having me.
Matt, do you think Mike's sort of aware when he drops those things about the punishment tire? Because to him, he's like, well, yeah, obviously, yeah, you did the bad thing, so you get the naughty step tire. Whereas me and Matt was sitting here going, oh my God, I don't know if on the YouTube I managed to switch to us.
Yeah, I don't know, but I'd say you could dine out for a long time on stories like that, because that was up there with the best of the Carter revelations, right?
Yeah.
And just I mean, because we watched that and we knew that there was some shenanigans going on, but we were always focused at the end of the race with Rosberg just saying, I don't have to turn until I get to the edge of the track, even if you're alongside me. And Lewis going, well, I'm just going to turn where I turn.
That's funny. He's so indignant about that still. I've seen him on the telly and he was still like, wasn't me. And everyone actually laughed at him on the TV. Because, you can't just... do you know what I did? I went through it frame by frame today to see if it would stand up to the current stupid rules that we've got. But Hamilton was really far ahead. Like, he was ahead the whole time. Even with Rosberg not really braking enough to make the apex, he still never got alongside. So even by today's rules, he was entitled to space. It's a clear cut as you can punt and forcing someone off track as you can get.
I think we've argued about rules in the past, but it's very clear that if a car is alongside, you can only go as far as turning and leaving them room to still be on track. If you go beyond that, then that's fully on you. It's my opinion as shadow steward.
He just didn't turn at all. And it was very clear.
No, he didn't. He's like, I'm going to drive all the way off the track and there's nothing you can do about it.
In his sort of tactical defense, you go, well, you may as well. You're in a 2-horse race, so he's just defending as hard as he can. If he'd have got away with that, maybe if he just turned a little more and made him go off a little, and then you could go argue, well, he left the track, he's got to give me that place back,
Yeah, no, he could have been more, I'm going to use the word subtle about it.
No, but I guess Stuart goes, can we run a sweepstake on which newspaper/F1 news site will splash with that story? Come on, just all we ask is just a link. Just say Missed Apex with a little, where it's a little blue hyperlink so they can get to the episode. All right, Spotify or iTunes, that's fine. Anyway, really, really interesting. Definitely love the fact that it backs me up that teams do this kind of thing. Because in his head, it was like, we needed to restore the natural order of the race that Rosberg had sort of subverted there. But to us, it's like, whoa, you fully manipulated that in Lewis's favour because you felt that that Lewis had been unfairly put into second place. Fantastic. All right, Matt. Oh, go on. You carry on with that. I'm just going to move us along.
Sorry, I was just going to finish up with, I'm just imagining the C-suite when they're told, oh, by the way, we had a problem with Hamilton's pit stop and now Rosberg is ahead.
Yeah, I know. And they go, right, well, how do we
head in hands.
But I can see where they're going, well, this problem will kind of go away because we've got to stop Rosberg again anyway because he's on a 2-stop. So that'll just dissolve itself. And then he goes, no.
I shall be a toddler.
No, I learn. Or I will fight. If we can't do down Rosberg for wanting to stay ahead there, but then, support the fact that Hamilton was trying to back Rosberg into Vettel in Abu Dhabi. I think they're both reasonable. You can see why they did it. Okay, so we got all our stuff to watch the Austrian Grand Prix. I do feel much better prepared after doing these previews, Matt. Because I genuinely haven't bothered listening to you when you go, oh, it's the C13, C12, C11. And then I'd get to the race and I'd be like, oh, these tyres are lasting forever. I do feel far more armed going to race weekends, and I hope others do. Is there anything Austria specific before we look at some of the news stories? There is, I guess, the Ferrari updates.
And Ferrari and Red Bull. But one thing that Mike didn't mention that he accidentally mentioned was the fact that it's an altitude track.
Yeah, he did
and
mention.
we do know that the Honda goes better at altitude. And we do know that the Mercedes struggles with cooling. So he's picking Piastri to easily win it. But I do kind of wonder if that might play into it a little bit this weekend as well. Just putting some doubt into people's mind.
Oh yeah, it's well, look at Canada. 2/3 of the way through the race, there was 5 cars who were realistically in contention and could have ended up winning, depending on how the strategy panned out, which I don't think anyone knew. And it wasn't McLaren running away, and they didn't have it all their own way in qualifying either. So you go, I just don't know the order, race to race. You can't say it's nailed on. This is going to be McLaren running away with it. And I can't even remember like a 2-horse race, say in 2017, 2018, where you go, well, it's going to be either Vettel or Hamilton that's going to be dominating. We genuinely don't know. There's a 3-way title fight at the moment between Piastri, Norris and Verstappen. And we don't know, are they going to be fighting for the lower end of the points? It's possible. You can turn up on any race weekend and they could be scrapping all of them for 4th, 5th and 6th. Yeah, not even the big chunky points. Or one of them could be miles in and ahead, but you've then got the Mercedes and the Ferrari having a good weekend and knocking it in there. So I think before the start of the weekend, you could say potentially one of 7 cars could be turn up and be the dominant car. So Ferrari have got updates. They feel like they've got potential in the car. They have had the odd good performance. So you don't know if they're going to get in the mix and ruin it for a Verstappen or a Piastri or a Norris. And I will say, I saw a quote actually from Martin Brundle. I think it was on the Sky website. And he said, even though the season is yet to reach its halfway point, the deficit of over 40 points are rarely turned around, but Verstappen is not out of the title fight at all. So normally you would say if there's a 40, 50 point lead, you'd go, that's unassailable. You're never going to turn that around from the halfway point. You know, it's really rare cases like Alonso losing it in 2012. I think he was 51 points ahead come the summer break. But in a season like this, where it's not just one rival and you're both either getting 25 or 18 points up at the front, especially as you had with the Rosberg Hamilton fights in 14, 15 and 16, you could win 3 races in a row because your car suddenly has an upgrade package that shuffles you up to the top, and your rivals could be 4th, 5th, 6th, so 50 points is huge. But with 7 cars that could probably win any given race, you string a couple of wins together, and I think you're back. And that's why I like this season, Matt. I was speaking to someone yesterday who said that the season had been a big disappointment. But I'm like, yeah, but do you know who's going to win? I think that makes it exciting. Do you know who's going to have the fastest car this weekend? The answer is no.
No, we don't. We can make some guesses. Some of them might be more educated than others. But you're right. It's not mathematically out in the way it usually is at this point in the season. Now, I know you mentioned the Ferrari update. It's a new floor.
Oh, yeah. Tell us everything.
It was originally meant to come in at Silverstone, but they worked hard to bring it to this one. That's the good news. The bad news is they don't really expect it to do much on its own. There's more coming to really fully to make it work, but it's entirely to deal with the limits of the rear suspension not being offering consistent downforce. And this has really been what's impacted Lewis and his driving so much. It apparently really is a problem for him. And I hate to say it, Leclerc fans, but their realistic goal now is 2nd place in the Constructors, which is everybody's favorite championship, right?
Yes, the most important one, apparently, recently. So it's the most important one since Red Bull started leaving this huge open goal. So the Red Bull's been the dominant car, it's been the faster car, but because only one of the entries has been working well, it's opened up this much more achievable title of the World Constructors. So you change the narrative to say, well, that's the team one and it's the team game and it's most important, but it's lies. It's lies and I don't buy it.
You don't. And the only other little bit of information about Ferrari is they do have their 26 car in the wind tunnel now. So that's that for that. They're still working on this year's car, but the 26 car is now their main focus.
Just before I just get to that, I just want to clarify something that the live chat have been saying that there was a lot of 2 stops last year for the Austrian Grand Prix. I think what Mike's
it was
saying,
a two-stop race.
Yeah, I think what he's saying is the winning strategy might be someone going for a one-stop. But back to Ferrari. So you said,
Right.
so the wind tunnel now, keep pressing the wrong button on YouTube. The wind tunnel now is over to the 2026 car. So there's no more aero tweaks from the wind tunnel. Obviously, they can still make some changes if they spot something on track or on the simulator. But that doesn't mean that they're not doing any upgrades. That doesn't mean they've given up on the car. Something, I can't remember where I read it. Let's just say it was the race. It said, maybe it's actually a sign of confidence in the aero platform that they're like, no, this is where we want the aero platform to be. Now we're trying to dial it in and make it work. So they haven't written off the SF. Is it the SF25? Yeah, SF25.
Yeah, no, they haven't at all. And in fact, the fact they've gone this deep with it suggests that they feel there's a lot of unexpressed potential in it, and it's worth working on the bits they're still working on, even in terms of knowledge for next season, despite having different aerodynamic regulations. But it's interesting that there was a period of time where they essentially didn't have a technical director. Vasseur took that over, and that was when the 25 car was at a very critical stage. And the article, it was an Auto Racer IT, said that the two technical directors essentially looked at it and then had to go back in and come up with an entirely different process to solve the issues that had been brought in by that little 3-month gardening leave where Cardile left before Sarah came in. And so that's been part of why it's taken them so long to get to this point. It wasn't just we need to design a new part. It was we need to go back and figure out why these errors happened in the first place, fix that, then fix the part, produce it, and bring it to the racetrack. So just a little more for your story there.
All right. And it will definitely work.
I think if the rear suspension update that's meant to go along with it does what they want it to, yeah, because it was they were saying that they've had to do, I can't remember the article now, they've been having to do lots of lift and coast, especially with Leclerc, just to keep them safe on the plank and the skid blocks, and they've really been having to drive around this a lot more than people are aware of. And like I said, the fundamental problem is one that really affects Lewis's driving style. So a lot of what you're seeing is very, if you're a Lewis fan, every time you see him not do well, you're like, oh no, it's over, it's over.
Yeah.
But really, a lot of this is down to the car, and he's fully on board for the 26 effort. And if they can fix this and make it better, that's going to be awesome.
Yeah. So there were a lot of sort of unsettling rumors about Ferrari and talk of Leclerc moving elsewhere. And I read something, and I'm really sorry I'm being vague about. I read something somewhere, I think, that the 2026 car might be steered more towards Hamilton's driving style. But on the evidence of this season, you would think that would be mad, wouldn't you? You go, why are we basing it around the driver who's struggling so much?
Well, this is interesting, and we've seen it go very wrong. I remember Button and Hamilton at McLaren, and Button was really struggling, and they essentially stopped Lewis's development track to try and fix Buttons, and then both of them wound up being terrible till they gave up on that idea. But fundamentally, what I'm going to suggest to you is that you've got two driver inputs. You have two data channels for how to make the car, and if you pick a driver, he's fast, he looks so good, you do the calculations, you're like, I can make it even faster because he can do this if we do this, and then the next thing you know, your car is down a blind alley where only one driver can drive it, and it's becoming less and less drivable with every update. Now, I may be talking about Max and Red Bull here, or I might be talking about MotoGP, but I think the answer is the team would be smart to balance the input of these drivers, because you're going to wind up with a better car for both drivers, and you reduce the risk of going down a blind alley that it takes a season or two to recover from. And you don't want that at the beginning of a new regulation set.
Or you brought a driver in for 2026. The eyes must have been on 2026. You're spending 450 million. You know what he's capable of, and you know this 2025 car doesn't suit his driving style. If you're not going to pivot to his driving style for 2026, why did you sign him? That would be my question. So I think Vasseur, really, I think his whole job and his whole reputation really is riding on getting results. But I think with Hamilton, as much as with Leclerc, I think if he's the person that brought a dud in for 450 million at the end of his career, that's going to sting. So I think, you're going to go one way or the other. I very much doubt you're really hobbling a car by building it towards Lewis Hamilton. That's not a failure, is it? You're not going to go, we're doing something weird. It's not weird for a team to build a car around 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton. So for Vasseur, this could be the big, not so Hail Mary where he goes, do you know what if we just pivot it towards Hamilton style? Let's give him all the tools he needs, because the prize for Hamilton getting in that car, unlocking it and doing well and going and winning a championship in 2026, they will carry me out of Maranello on gold-plated thrones. This is the real glory shot. Pivot to Hamilton.
I think the thing to consider here is that Vasseur is carrying water for Johan Elkann, who brought Lewis into the team.
Well, then whichever one, then yeah.
Yeah, and it's really on Vasseur, and it's just problematic for him that the car this year hasn't performed up to their expected potential. But I see no signs that Lewis is unhappy. And frankly, it's very easy to make the argument, look, if you made a car that Lewis can be fast in, why is Leclerc not also going to be fast in it? I just, that doesn't wash. To me, the multiple data streams and the lack of blind alleys is the biggest reason to do that. But, so there is that money being spent too, and you're not wrong about that.
Chat and Greg here is convinced that it's all 100% on John Elkann. Anyway, so whoever's making the decision, I think the bold play with the biggest glory is bring Lewis Hamilton his 8th championship at Ferrari, and you're going to be heroes. Yeah, apologies, I don't quite know how the internal upper management of Ferrari works, because I wasn't paying any attention to Ferrari till this season suddenly. And so suddenly it's incredibly important.
And we don't know. I mean, it could be Vasseur talking Elkann into it, saying this is the thing. So we really don't know where that nexus of responsibility lies. But yeah, it is. I don't know. I always felt like 26 was the reason Lewis came to Ferrari, not 25. Yeah. So I'm not as bugged by any of this as a lot of other people.
I am bugged. Yeah, I'm bugged. Because it just looks like they've really got it wrong. And you saying that stuff about the gap in the technical directors, I was just had my head in my hands the whole time going, yep, that I believe that. I believe that story completely, and that makes sense. And it's not quite singing. It's not harmonious. The car, they've obviously got parts that don't work well with the whole car, and this thing of just not being able to, or having to protect the skid block, I think is one of the most worrying ones, because then you've got to compromise everything just to satisfy the ride height.
And then it's not inconsistent. And with a lack of consistency, you have a lack of confidence, and the balance is wrong. The car does the opposite thing you expect it to. And you still drive the car fast because it's a fast car. But those last tenth and a half that you really need, especially in qualifying, they go away. And that's what we've seen, better race performance from the Ferrari than qualifying. And that's what these updates will hopefully help with.
Well, time for one topic from you, Matt. But while you have a chance to think about that, just answer a question here from Chris saying, why is there no YouTube chat? Well, we have consolidated our chat for most of our streams into our Patreon Discord. And patrons on the whole, they're very, very nice and not that distracting when you're trying to do a live stream. So it's a nice kind of, Patreon perk as well. Really, the whole thing of supporting us at patreon.com/Missed Apex is helping an independent podcast be in the space with the big boys. And I think we are. I think we're top 5. We're in and around that. Everybody else around us is getting paid to turn up and record a podcast. We're not. We are able to do this professionally because of our patrons. So please consider supporting us. Patreon.com/Missed Apex. But yeah, it's the patrons in our live chat, in the Discord, in the live stream channel. YouTube, when anyone can come in off the street, I don't mind. If you look at our YouTube comments now, after the fact, there's loads of weird comments. Obviously, if it's abusive, I delete it. But there's loads of weird and negative comments there. After the fact, on a Monday when I'm sat in the garden, who cares? When you're actually doing it live and people are being aggy, it's oh. And I'm big enough and ugly enough, so's Matt. But then we have, amateur people who come on who are not used to that kind of thing, and you get super mean comments. And actually, the the worst was whenever we have women on, you'll get someone just wading in there with just the most misogynistic crap. And it's all the women we've had on. So it's not one specific woman. So yeah, this is just the way we do it. But look, there's loads of ways to get in touch. We had loads of people get in touch about the call-ins that couldn't make it because of whatever reason, but thought it was a good idea and have messaged me on this WhatsApp number. Apparently 00, it doesn't really work for a lot of countries. So just it's +$447947471840. That is Missed Apex's WhatsApp number. And if we open our WhatsApp lines, we'll be more than happy to speak to you. And yeah, it's something we might use for kind of casual streams and for our TikTok streams as well. I streamed on TikTok, Matt, the other day. I did a TikTok live.
I am both jealous and in awe. TikTok remains a VCR programming level mystery to me.
It was all right.
As someone who's just like about a generation ahead of you, I
fumbled through it. I might do the Spanners solo shows on TikTok because it's technically easier and it's just a bit of variety to the stream. Right. What topic are you gracing us with then to end the show?
Well, I think you're going to be very proud of me because originally I was going to discuss, you remember how you think you understand thermal degradation?
Yeah, I tried.
That's the big deal at the Red Bull Ring, but I found out that the porosity, the surface porosity of the tire is what gets affected by that. And that rough surfaces like we have at Austria can exacerbate that, especially in high temperatures. So things like blisters, they actually call them microcavities. But instead, I saw just this morning, how would you feel about Vettel going back to Red Bull?
I think it would be kind of Sonny Hayes levels of, he's gone. He's still a young man. How old is Vettel?
It doesn't matter. I got you because he's talking to Marco about taking over Marco's role at Red Bull, not actually driving a car because he's sensible and also, needs to spend time with his bees and stuff like that.
He's only 37. Vettel's only 37. Yeah, but he's got kids. He's got a family. You don't want to go back doing that at that point.
I'm curious. Like now, for me, if Marco left Red Bull and Vettel assumed that role, am I going to have to rethink how I feel about this team? Because Vettel has become a venerated figure on the nice guy side of things since he's left competitive racing. And is this kind of a little bit of a, call it an optical change that the team could use? Because when they started, they were the hip, cool, fun to be with party all night gang. And they've kind of turned into, everybody calls the dominant team the Death Star, but they have a vibe that is very off-putting to people who aren't fans of the team to start with.
Yeah. And any more on that?
No, I was curious to get your take on it, honestly. Like how would you feel if Marco disappeared?
I don't care.
You don't care? It wouldn't make a difference. All right, there it is. There it is.
Okay, so Marco's been fairly quiet this season. Haven't heard from him. But really, he just made a bunch of I don't know what role he plays, doing the junior driver stuff. But he just every now and then he would pop up and just say the most toxic crap.
Exactly.
And then you'd have a billion news stories spouting the same toxic crap. And then everyone would have to both sides it. He'd say something like, we should put the opposition drivers on skewers and kebab them. And then you'd have some poll. Do you think we should skewer and barbecue the opposition drivers? What do you think? And then the poll would be like 50-50. And you go, I'm sick of it. But I don't know. I don't know if he maybe gives to charity the weekends and he's a great granddad. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it was. It seemed to be of the many rumors and swirling gossips we could bring up. That seemed to be the most entertaining in terms of goodbye Marco, hello Vettel.
I feel like the F1 would be a nicer place with Sebastian Vettel in it.
It does seem that way, right?
Yeah. Nice one. Well, I'm glad he's not making a comeback into the car. I do feel like that generation of drivers. I mean, this is why the whole Sonny Hayes F1 thing was so unbelievable, because I think if you brought back even one generation back of drivers, you'd see them all struggle. I think even if you gave them 10 years of age back, I think, if you put Webber, Fisichella, button. I think even that step of a generation back, they're going to suffer against this current field and cars.
Yeah. Well, I just look at young drivers who have to spend a season out of the car for whatever reasons. Look at how difficult that is for them. And that's when you have all your reflexes and racing instincts. It's just a challenge. And once you've been out for a couple of years, a test driver maybe, sim driver maybe, but no, you never get back to where you were or even close.
Thank you very much for joining me, Matt. And of course, people can go and follow you at MattPT55. And if you heard me sort of cursing in the background, it wasn't because of Matt. I mean, it sometimes is. It's because I've got a new switchboard and my muscle memory was failing. So every time I switched to you, Matt, they only saw the top of your head. And then I would audibly go, "Oh my God." And then I switch back to the full scene. Fine. I'll get used to it.
They're probably better off just looking at the top of my head anyway.
Yeah, there we go. That's the scene I kept cutting to. Go and follow Matt at MattPT55. Go and check him out on the MotoGP podcast with Kyle. There's an episode out yesterday for the weekend's races. They're getting pretty good at getting those out quickly. Numbers are good on that show. Go and join that lovely community around MotoGP. I've reduced the quality of what I'm posting on Instagram, but I've increased the quantity. So I don't know if that's better or worse, but they seem to be well liked enough, the things I post. So go and follow me at Instagram, Spanners Ready, and then I'm still active on X. I don't care. I go where you go. Okay, but I am kind of double posting between X and Blue Sky. Spanners Ready on there as well. And what else? Oh, come iRacing with us. Racecontrol at missedapex.net. Right. And we still have a couple of spots for our Silverstone qualifying Saturday little live event at Milton Keynes. It's a small venue, so we've only got like 35, 40 seats there. We're going to record some kind of show, do a live quiz, have some beers, and just a nice hangout. A nice casual Saturday evening hangout. Until we see you next, work hard, be kind, and have fun. This was Missed Apex Podcast. I mean, if I practiced on the board, that would help. But I keep just coming to the show and going, "Oh yeah, it's the same problem I was having last week, and I've got no better." There's no unlimited testing in podcast world. I mean, there is. I just don't do it.